Good morning. It's the crypto day morning for today's date, Monday, the 8th of October, 2018. My name is Derek, all trades, bets, and of the like within one's own risk reward. And Bitcoin remains so firm within, well, I'm not going to draw a straight line, but it's definitely an uptrend here. And lower highs, a 5-year-old can tell you it's making that of lower highs. Several days staying within the bands, not getting above the 18 highs, not getting above the 18 lows, at least not for too long amongst such on October the 3rd. Day number 4, just hanging in there below this point, and the volatility yesterday, a low of about 6,500, a high of 66, so barely over 100 points, not quite 2%. Today's level, and it's already almost 11 hours into the day, a low of 65.41, a high of 65.83, a differential of a little over 42 basis points. It's still got a ways to go to get to 1% volatility. So I'm done with Bitcoin for today's video. Let's take a look at a few altcoins that have some interesting possible setups. The first being CMT, you'll be a little bit later into the party, and I say that as in, look, if you're going to be buying on a breakout, I think 1725-ish area was a better spot, but as I look at it, as the 18 average goes, the downtrend going sideways, starting to go higher, so a good amount of gains, but nothing too spectacular, which is part of the risk reward. And amongst some level of trading, strategy-wise, if you look at risk, say for example, if you were to put stop losses below 1,500, look for gains up around here. Even if you're right in a situation like that, 40% of the time, you'd be doing pretty good along the way. But some other altcoins that I've noticed got some possible good setups. We got Populous, PPT, which had an interesting run in August. And this is the type of volatility I look to get or hope to get. You get a low of around 4,200, then it rallies up to a bit over 10,000, so a little bit better than 100% gain, giving pretty much all of it back amongst August and September. Band started to flatten out, and we can see over the last few days, October the 4th, it gets up to the 18 highs. 3 days in which it just stays amongst it with green candle up, red candle down to the blue line, and then leaving it yesterday. And now breaking any levels of short-term resistance, because I could easily put a line in here. And when I look at this on shorter-term time frames, probably notice that had some key points given this high. Close enough here, and then these few days just recently leaving. Let's take a look at this on a 3-hour, and there we can see how just over the last few days since October the 3rd, how it comes to this level, then spends a few periods back in the 18, back up to it again, a bunch of periods again, and we can see how it has left it in here. The 18 average it is, and then it broke resistance the period before. So definitely looking as if this has the potential to fill some of this empty space, maybe make it up to this next level of resistance. We have previous support at about 5,900, well 6,000 we'll say, and even going deeper into that level up to about 68. And that's really just the next key level, because although this really makes it tougher to see, but you got levels, we can go up to possible 97, because if this level isn't resistance, I'll be looking for, of course, higher gains. That should go without saying. Let's move on to the next coin. And that is Decred, DCR. And downtrend, sideways action. There's the green candle leaving the 18 on October the 4th. Spending 3 days to get back to the 18 highs, and it's now looking to break. So when I talk about the steps for the change of reversal after a downtrend, stage 1, band to flatten out. Stage 2, establish resistance. Stage 3, come back to the band, and stage 4 is break established resistance. And by placing a line at this point in here, which it kind of is already at with the current price, but with that being said, taking a look at this on the single hour time frame, what we're seeing is the first stages of that situation of breaking established resistance, because it's obviously just happened. This is the good green candle here, 3 o'clock in the morning. Right now it is 6:55 a.m. and it's just barely broken. So noticeably, no, not the daily term time frame, it's at that level. It's basically a pierce above. So I'd like to see something around the 657 to 662 handle for what would be that of a clear break. But in such an event, then you start talking about testing some of these levels. Maybe a day like this might happen where some sick buyer will come in, or buyers, and it'll just go way higher. But you got this empty space, you go to 780 handle, maybe 980. So there's definite potential for some gains here, or good probabilities for a decent move leg higher. Let's look at Golem next, GNT. And again, the obvious downtrend. And what we're seeing is, since this move higher, it has consolidated very, very well within the 18 average of highs. It's still got to get above these levels of resistance. So you got 24.51 up to 24.80. So it needs to have a clear break above 25. But it does look like it's got a good setup moving on right now. It's showing some good strength for good probability odds moving forward. Moving on next with Virg, and it's had the last decent break on October the 1st, came back to the lows the next day, but is then followed with about almost a half a dozen periods showing strength within the 18 average of highs. And today's session right now, it's starting to break above it, or it's looking to. So we're going to put two lines in. We have the resistance that it hit just at the start of October, and then you have this high here as well. So this is the band of resistance I'd like to see it break out, but it also gives you the situation that if it does make its move and has a leg higher, you're talking about breaking above that level. Where do we look at gains? Well, this thing can move wild with some of the up moves it's had. The April Fool's rally that it had, which started 2 weeks early on such, it went from 340 up to over about 1,400, but even trading firmly at about 1,200. So the definite gains for a 2, 3, 4, 5x are most certainly in play. And some of its previous gains, like last year's gain, it goes from like 50 up to over 1,800. So the 30x gains. I'm not saying it's going to do it again, and there might be some other coins I've never even experienced moves like that will maybe have a 30x gain soon, but it definitely has potential for amazing moves if it's going to do something. But I like how this setup is looking right now within its 18 average and basically the last month and change. NAS, which is nebulous, might have pronounced that incorrect, but be that as it may, we have this level of resistance here, and it's going to be another band again, because then you got this resistance up here. So what I'd be looking for is, if it has a fast move up here, to maybe find some resistance here. But once it gets past this level here, and there's not much data, this thing has the potential for superior gains. And this is crossed against Binance coin, but be that as it may, it would look very similar against Bitcoin as well. But I like how it's correcting within this 18 and getting above the 18.8 mark. I think it's got some decent moves ahead of it. PivX, which is the next one, it had its rally on September the 29th, making it up to the 21 handle, and it came from the 14, so that was about a 50% move. But more importantly, it has spent the last 9 or so days, over a week, just staying within the 18 average of highs with low volatility. And when this thing gets going above such, you start to see it in the 18,000s range. It's got full potential to go well into the 20s. And then you start talking about some of these moves. This is a coin that went from like well over, it was 150,000. Oh, it's even higher than that. It was like, yeah, 160,000 down to 16,000. So it's lost 10 times its value. But last year, this thing went from like 700 Satoshi to like 160,000. That's, you can just let that sink in, what coins have the potential to do for what this did in like March, April last year. Next coin. That will be the POA network and will also be against Binance, but again, very similar moves right now. Actually, Binance coin against Bitcoin's got a nice setup, so I can put that up next as well. But this is a situation, look at all these periods showing strength amongst the 18 average of highs after the September 16th rally. About a dozen or maybe even a couple more, a baker's dozen I'm not going to count, but then you have this green candle barely getting above, showing the signs of a possible failed breakout when it came down on the 18, but it actually firmly held the 18 average of lows for 3 consecutive days on low volatility. And then a couple days ago, it had a big volume rally that got up to its previous established level of resistance, which is established because that's what it hit on September 29th. Very small pullback, and today's volatility is very small with a low of 784 and a high of 806, but hanging in there above the 18. So getting above, and this is against Binance again, but you can see similar patterns against Bitcoin, getting above any established resistance. In this case, it's between the 871 handle and the 1,000. So breaking 871 wouldn't surprise me if it had a fast move to 1,000, and then breaking 1,000, or the 100 handle, however you want to name it, decent moves thereafter if it does so. Meaning, if this thing goes past here, it wouldn't surprise me if, say, 30 hours later, this was 13, 14, 16 handle. Even 2-3x doesn't surprise me at any given time when these things are ready to go. Binance coin against Bitcoin is next. And within this one, this is just going sideways for so many days, and then the market changed, the story changed. A new event occurred October 2nd. Since that event of a good rally, about a half a dozen days just showing strength amongst the 18 average of highs. Oh, let's put some lines in now, and let's shorten out the time frame. Right with this high here. And it's going to go back probably even to some other levels. But how does this look, say, on a shorter term time frame? Let's do 3 hours next. Hits that level, comes back to the 18. Another test of it, but it spends more time amongst it. It hits the level, comes back down, hits it again, and then down again, spending several amount of periods amongst the 18, sort of supporting this level here. And then it's a small move from the 18 average of lows to the 18 average of highs. That's like a small upgrade in the story. And you know, if it continues with these higher lows, gets above the 16.2 handle, well, it's got the potential for some decent gains. And a lot of other coins have great setup as well. I'm going to end the video at that. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.